This video is on solving multi-step equations. We have already solved two-step equations, so now what we're going to do is you're going to be given equations that need to be simplified and they're turned into a two-step equation, and then you want to solve. And we're going to solve those equations in a certain order. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down an example and we'll talk about the order that we do together. So our first example, all right, if you write this down, is going to be 2 times 6x plus 3 equals 18 minus 3 times 16 minus 3x. All right, maybe a chance to write that down real quick. So if you're looking at this equation, you see that it is not ready to be solved because there are parts that need to be simplified. My goal is to turn this into a two-step equation, and if I do simplify it in the correct order, that's exactly what I'm going to get. So if you look at the steps here, you'll see that I'm going to do distributive property and combine like terms first. And then if there's a variable on the same, on both sides, like on this one, we have a 6x on one side and a 3x on the other, then we'll move those. The point of steps 1 through 3, okay, so steps 1 through 3 are all about simplifying the equation. So write this down. Okay, so that's all the way simplifying, and this is where we solve in the last two steps. Okay, so we're going to do distributive property first on this equation. Remember, we can't add or subtract anything as long as there's parentheses in our equation. So the first thing I'm going to do is distribute the 2 to the 6x and the 2 to the 3 here. So I'm going to do 2 times 6x, which is 12x, and then 2 times 3, which is 6. All right, so I distributed that. On the opposite side of the equation, I'm going to bring down the 18. One of the common mistakes people make is that they want to subtract that 18 and the 3, but you can't do that yet because there are parentheses. You always have to get rid of parentheses before you add or subtract. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply a negative 3 times 16 and negative 3x. So negative 3 times 16 is negative 48. Okay, so a negative 3 times a positive 16. Now I'm going to do a negative 3 times a negative 3x, which is a positive because a negative times a negative is a positive, so I'm going to put down plus 9x. So there's step 1, distributive property. Step 2 says combine like terms on the same side of the equal sign. So if I look on the left side, the 12x plus 6, those are not like terms. So I'm not going to combine them. They're just going to be brought down. But if I look at the right-hand side, I do have like terms. 18 and minus 48 are like terms. So I'm going to do 18 plus a negative 48, or you could do 18 minus 48. Either way, we're going to get minus 30. Okay. So negative 30 plus 9x. Okay, so again, we're still simplifying. Still doesn't look like a two-step equation like we had. The thing that is holding us back now is I noticed there's an x on the left, 12x, and there's an x on the right, 9x. So to solve this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take away one of them, the x's from one side, and bring it to the other. And typically I move from the right to the left. So what I mean by that is I'm going to take away 9x here and then take away 9x from the 12. All right, so I'm going to take away the 9x from one side. So I'm left with negative 30. 12 minus 9 is 3x plus 6. And look at there, I have a two-step equation. Okay, so again, you won't, I'm simplifying the equation to get a two-step. Keep in mind, probably won't have distributive property in every question. I probably won't have like terms in every equation or moving variables, but I'm going to go in that order every time. But those steps 1 through 3, the whole point of those is to simplify my equation. So now I'm going to solve this two-step equation like we've done before. I'm going to subtract 6. I get 3x equals negative 36. And then I'm going to divide everything by 3. Negative 36 divided by 3 is negative 12. And don't forget, you can always substitute in negative 12 back into the equation and make sure we get the same number on both sides. All right, so let's do another example of simplifying an equation and solving. Okay, so let's see, example 2. All right, I'm going to get 5 times n plus 2 plus 9n equals 6. So this one, again, is not ready to solve because I have parentheses. There's some like terms there. So I'm going to go through those steps to solve it. Again, I cannot add anything until I distribute. So I know my first step is going to be to distribute. I'm going to do 15 times m and 15 times 2, which is 30. I'm going to bring down the plus 9n because it's not being combined with anything, and then bring down the 6. Now, I have like terms the same side of the equation. The 15 and the 9 are like terms. And since they're on the same side, I'm not going to take away 9 from 15. I'm combining like terms. I'm going to combine 15 and 9 and get 24n plus 30 equals 6. So I'm not taking away the 9n. Like if you look at the previous question, I took away 9x, but that's because I was moving across the equal sign. For example 2, I'm not moving across the equal sign. I'm just combining two that are on the same side. So 15 plus 9n is 24. Now I have a two-step equation. Subtract 30. I get 24n equals negative 24. 6 minus 30 is negative 24. And then I divide by 24. And I get n equals negative 1. Okay, so we're simplifying equations to get a two-step equation. All right, so let's do a few more examples. I think we'll do about 3 more examples. So example number 3. Make sure I can find it. I wrote it down already. Okay, here it is. 4x minus 9 minus 3x equals 8x minus 1. All right? And at this point, what you may want to pause the video and try this problem on your own, and then watch me do it afterwards and see if you get the same answer. Because I think the more you practice, the more you learn. So at this point, if you like to pause, try this question on your own, and then go back and watch me do it, I think that would be the most helpful thing to do. Okay, so I hope you paused and tried it. Now we're going to do this together. So look at, I can't combine like terms yet. I can't add anything because there's parentheses. And I'm like, oh, I need to distribute, but I don't see a number there. I'm not going to distribute the 4x. Remember, I assume there's a 1 here. So I'm going to distribute a negative 1. So I'm going to do, bring down the 4x. Negative 1 times 9 is negative 9. Negative 1 times 3x is a positive 3x. And then 8x minus 1 gets brought down because there's nothing to distribute there. Those aren't like terms. I'm not going to combine them. However, now I have like terms on the left-hand side. I have 4x and a 3x. 4 plus 3 is 7x. So 7x minus 9 equals 8x minus 1. So there's no like terms on the left. 7 and x and 9 aren't like terms. 8x and minus 1 aren't like terms. So now I'm ready to move the 8x to the left-hand side. So I'm going to take away 8x. All right? Notice because I'm moving to the side, I am doing an opposite sign. Opposite sides, opposite signs. So now I get negative 1x, or you could just write negative x, minus 9 equals a negative 1. That minus 1 becomes a negative 1. And now I have a two-step equation. I'm going to add 9, and then I divide by that negative 1 that we assume is next to x. Add 9. Negative x equals 8. And then divide by negative 1. So I get x equals negative 8. So hopefully that is what you got when you solved the equation. Hopefully I did it right. Okay. All right, so let's do another one. Again, it would probably be in your best interest to try this one on your own first, and then check to see if you get it right. So let's look. Example 4. Let's see. 2 times 9n minus 1 plus 7n plus 6 equals negative 60. Okay, so I would try this one on your own. All right, so hopefully you tried this one on your own, and now I'm going to, well, hopefully you try this on your own, hit pause, and then try this on your own. Now we're going to do it together. So I see some distribution. So I'm going to go ahead and do that first. So I'm going to do 2 times 9n, which is 18n, 2 times minus 1, which is minus 2. Now distribute the 7. 7 times n, 7 times 6, which is 42. All right, don't have a two-step equation yet, so I'm still simplifying. I have like terms. 18 and 7 is 25, so 18 plus 7n is 25n's. Then I'm going to do minus 2 plus 42, which is a positive 40. Okay, and now I have a two-step equation. I'm going to subtract the 40, and I'm going to divide by the 25. 25n equals negative 100. Divide by 25, and I get n equals negative 4. All right, again, and you can substitute in and make sure that answer works. All right, so let's do another example. So example 5, I'm going to do for this one 9x plus 27 equals 4x minus 3. So when I go to solve, there's no distributive property, so I don't need to worry about that. Then I'm like, there's no like term, 9x and 27 aren't like, so I can't combine those. 4x and minus 3 aren't like, so I can't combine those. And now I look at the next step, move variables to the same side. All right, I can do that. I'm going to take this 4x away. Note if that 4x was a negative, so if this had been a negative 4x, I would have added it, but it's a positive 4x, so I'm going to subtract it. So I get 5x plus 27 equals negative 3. Now I have a two-step equation. I'm going to take away 27 and then divide by 5. Oh, I forgot to tell you to try this on your own. Oh, well, hopefully you did that. If you didn't, that's okay too. All right, divide by 5, and I get x is negative 6. Okay, so again, our goal today is to simplify equations so they become two-step equations. One thing I want to talk about is that we need to deal with, sometimes when you have a variable on both sides, sometimes your solutions don't make sense because variables will cancel each other out. So I want to talk about what those solutions would look like. So we're going to do two examples here. Example number 1, 3x plus x plus 4 equals 4x plus 5. And then example 2, 3 times x plus 1 equals 3x plus 3. All right, so with these two equations, something wonky happens. All right, so let's look at example 1. Example 1, there's no distributive property, but 3x and x are like terms, so I add them together. I get 4x plus 4 equals 4x plus 5. Oops, plus 5. What I'm going to do is going to move the 4x to over here. But what happens is both of those 4x's cancel, and I get 4 equals 5. And I'm like, what? First of all, 4x doesn't equal 5, so that's no good. And my variables are gone. So whenever you end up with what I call a nonsense solution, and you get something that isn't true, like I get 4 equals 5, 0 equals 9, 12 equals negative 12. What happens here, there is no solution to this equation. There is no number when I substitute it into both sides that will give me a correct solution. Because if I look, it says 4x plus 4 equals 4x plus 5. There's no number in the world that I add 4 to it, I'll get the same thing if I add 5. Okay, so if you get a nonsense solution, 4 equals 5, because 4 doesn't equal 5, we're going to say no solution. Number 2, we're going to distribute the 3x. All right, and I get 3x plus 3 equals 3x plus 3. Again, something weird's happened. First of all, 3x plus 3 does equal 3x plus 3. I subtract this 3x, and I get 3 equals 3. Well, that's true. 3 always equals 3. They're the same number. So this has infinite solutions. No matter what number I substitute into both sides, I get the same answer every time. All right? So what happened here? What happened here is I got the same thing on the left and the right. So since it's the same thing on the left and the same thing on the right, every number will work. I could put in a 1 on both sides, a 2 on both sides. No matter what, I'll get the same solution on both sides. So that's something to keep in mind as you solve equations, that this could happen.